So, as we said, I don't know how many of you ever sent a Labor Day card or made one, but it is a holiday, right? And one that celebrates, the unique rights, right? And the unique privilege, really, truly, that it is to work. I found a really interesting quote that I wanted to start out with today. It's by Melvin Newland, a pastor, and he says that Labor Day is the most hypocritical of all our holidays. And of course, that kind of struck my attention, so I wanted to read more. And this is what he says. He says, if Labor Day is a celebration of the unique rights and freedoms that we as workers enjoy in our nation, that if we're really thankful that we have jobs, while some don't, that if we're really serious about labor being a blessing, then what we should do on Labor Day is go into work and tell the boss, I'm going to work today, and I'm going to work for free, just for the joy of working. But no, we're not going to do that, he says. Most of us will say, I don't want to work on Labor Day, but I do expect to get paid for it anyway, right? So maybe we're not quite as dedicated to the celebration of labor as we thought. Have you heard that saying about that, that you know you're in the right job or the right career when you do something and you honestly think, you know what, I would do this, I would still go to work whether they would pay me or not. I still love this, or it's such a privilege to be able to go do that, right? That's what we're always kind of, I guess, hoping for, right? That's how we feel. And again, that could be the same thing if you're retired and you're talking about volunteer work that you do, or other things that you do to serve others. So how many of you would say that? Whether it's a job you get paid for or a job that you do without pay. How many of you look forward to Monday mornings? Or you look forward to Monday mornings because you get to see your boss? Or you miss your fellow coworkers and you want to see how they're doing? So if you answered yes to any of those, yes, I really do truly feel that way, then you're probably in the minority, right? Surveys reveal that 65% of American workers are unhappy with their jobs. Many of them go to work simply because they have no choice. And they would probably say that, maybe it's maybe it's an unfair boss, right? Or maybe it's just a routine of every single day the same. Remember that old song I was thinking of? I had to look it up because I couldn't remember who it was, but Tennessee Ernie Ford, you got 16 tons, and what do you get? Another day older and deeper in debt. I'm trying to sing low because didn't he have that real low voice? So think about that. What a miserable way to live our lives. And again, some of us have kind of been able to kind of work through that of like, you know what, I am going to retire, or I'm going to quit this job, and I'm going to find something that does make me feel alive, and I'm going to go and do that instead, For some of us, it's an immediate thing. I know exactly what I want to do, just like when we're in college, right? And then other times, it's the opposite of, I need to take some time and really work on this and figure this out, right? We're going to try to get Ben to do some more job exploring. He had that, so maybe he's listening. I think he was this morning. But he's taken those before, when he was at Penna, you look at all these different careers. What sounds good to you, right? And as he gets older, he's like, okay, so here's what I know I don't like to do, right? And here's some of the things that I do like to do, and then kind of, honing in on that. Again, as college students, many of us had that, right? That either we knew right away what we wanted to do, or we changed majors 4 or 5 times, right? I was special ed major, pre-med major, and then music major, just because I had a bunch of music classes already, and I just thought, okay, well, it's been 5 years, I'm just gonna, do this, right? So, and that worked out, because I loved being a music teacher for, 15 years, actually. So we all have different callings, right, of what it is that we can do with our lives. And, but that to me is the main thing, is to follow that call as much as we can. And I get it. I had somebody yesterday that I just talked to, and they said, I said, so what do you do? Because I didn't know his job, and he said, how did he say it? He said, oh, well, I love being in plays and this, and that. And then he said, but my real job that I hate is, and then he mentioned, And I thought, oh, how sad, how sad that the real job is something that we don't like. But again, sometimes that happens too, right? That we have to get a paycheck, right? So we do that. So we have money to have the house and whatever else that we have maybe. And then we go do the other things for fun. So again, there's no right or wrong. Everybody has their own way of kind of working through things in their own family and their own lives. Everybody has their own path. But what I'm hoping that I can share today is whatever your path is, again, whether you're trying to discern what you want to do, or you're in something right now, or you've retired but you're doing other things in your life, that's what I'd like us to look at today, is how is it that God wants us to serve him through these various places that we are serving. Because, sometimes I really do think, and we've talked about this, I think, before, but that we really separate our lives, don't we? It's like, okay, so here's my time at church, an hour, right? Hour and 15 minutes if pastor goes on, right? And then maybe maybe another hour total throughout the week if I do, a couple minutes of Bible study or read, a devotional every day. And then all the rest then is secular. And that's the part, again, that I think really gets us into trouble, and I think really keeps us from a close relationship with God, is when we have that separation. And I don't think I'm going to be able to say this very well, but I remember one time hearing somebody liken it to like when you go shopping, and you have like all these parts of your life that go into the shopping cart. And that, okay, here's my religious life, and then here's my life at work, and here's, what I do with my family. But that it really should be, right, that cart is the holiness of life, and the cart is God in your life, and then all those pieces all mesh together, at least they should mesh together in service or in following how God wants us to live, right? Because you've all seen people, right? Hopefully it's not you or me, but it probably is, that we act one way in church and then we act another way in our workplace, or we act one way in church and another way with our family, right? So trying to kind of just think of that integrated life in God. The Old Testament and the New Testament had something very similar to that, right? The Old Testament said, okay, over here is the sacred temple. Only certain people can go in, and only people can go so far. No one else can come up to the Holy of Holies. And the priests, right? And everything everything else out here is secular. And then the New Testament, though, changed that, didn't it, for us? That the Holy Spirit lives in us and that everything is holy. The New Testament tells us that we can take God with us wherever we go, and that he can and should be a part of everything that we do. So I'd like you to consider two things this morning. The first one is, see your everyday work as a service for God. See your everyday work as a service for God. And again, I'm not talking necessarily, and I'm not going to keep saying this, I promise, because I hope you know that I'm there, that not necessarily work that you're getting paid for, because I understand not everyone is doing that, right? Maybe you're retired already, and you've lived your full life of work, and you're retired. I understand that. But you're still working, right? You're still doing things. You're still doing for your family. You're doing for your community. You're still working. So look at your everyday work, whatever it is that you do, and this is for kids too, as a service for God. Think about it. Do you realize that almost everything that you do affects someone else? Right? Almost every single thing that you do, whether you choose to do something or not do something, affects other people, right? It affects the people in your home. It affects the people maybe in your community or your extended family or your workplace or wherever it is. Everything that you do, all the choices that you make, or the choices that you don't make, I'll let somebody else do that. That affects everybody else around you. So think about it. We have food because there are farmers who planted the crop or raised the cattle. We're the beneficiaries of their labor. Think about it. You're going to go to Starbucks, right? Loretta and I were talking that we love the smell of coffee, right? Downstairs, Loretta made coffee. Thank you, Loretta. And I love the smell of coffee. Just don't make me drink it, right? Or don't make me try to make it because you won't want to drink it, right? But you think about it. You're going to Starbucks, and you're able to do that because somewhere somebody planted those beans, and somebody harvested those beans, and somebody put those in a ship, and somebody steered the ship, right? to where they could be processed. And then somebody else then ground them at Starbucks this morning, right? And somebody else put them in the container, and someone took your money, so you were able to get that cup of coffee. Jesus spent the first 30 years of his life in the little town of Nazareth, helping his earthly father in the carpenter shop. It doesn't say Jesus sat around. It doesn't Jesus, just loved, just kind of, I was going to say watching TV, but obviously he couldn't have done that, right? But whatever the equivalent was, right? But Jesus worked in the carpentry shop. Why? Because work is important. Because people need houses. People need yokes for their oxen. People need chairs to sit on and tables. And so Jesus and his earthly father provided that for all the people in the town. This is in part what Paul says, I think, in Romans 12:1. Therefore, I urge you, brothers, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as living sacrifices, holy and pleasing to God, which is your spiritual service or worship. So we can serve God in the way that we do work, whatever that work looks like. Number 2, you can serve God where you work. And again, wherever that happens to be. Maybe you're working volunteering at the food pantry, right? You see, well, Jenny, you don't know where I work. You don't know my boss. You don't know the kind of people I have to work with. You don't know the power struggles or the flirtations or the cursing, the gossip or the poor morale or the low ethics. You're right, I don't. But in Ephesians 6, verse 5 and 6, there's a passage that I think is going to be really helpful with that. It's addressed to slaves, but the closest thing to them today are workers, just like you and me. So I'm going to substitute the word worker for slave. And let's listen to what God has to say. Ephesians 6, verses 5 and 6. Workers, obey your earthly masters with respect and fear and with sincerity of heart, just as you would obey Christ. Obey them not only to win their favor when their eye is on you, but like slaves of Christ, doing the will of God from your heart. Or I guess I'd say of workers of Christ, although in this case I think slaves probably would be better, of following under the yoke of Christ, serving him with our hearts. So think about that. So he's saying even if your boss is this, monster that you just can barely stand, or completely doing the things opposite of what you believe that people should be doing in a workplace, you're supposed to do your work for him or her as if they were Jesus Christ. Wow, that is unimaginable, right? Almost impossible, you might say. But let's go back to the Old Testament a minute and let's think about Daniel. I've been thinking about my preaching calendar for the next year and, what series I want to do, if I do want to do some series, and what I want to do individually. And anyway, I was just really thinking about it. I thought, I have not done much Old Testament at all the last couple years. So I really want to rectify that. Yes, the New Testament, has so much with Christ's words, absolutely. But we all know that, that was the original scriptures from the Old Testament. Not that there aren't some things, again, that we need to kind of look at for the Old Testament, right? We need to kind of be thinking about those things. But at the same time, we also have so much that we can learn from the Old Testament. So anyway, so that's just one thing I've been thinking about. But you all know Daniel, right, from when you were little, right? Daniel in the lion's den, right? We all know that story. We know that he was carried away, captured to Babylon, taken from Jerusalem, surrounded by people who was in this pagan environment in Babylon. Time passed, right? So King Nebuchadnezzar appointed him as this government official, and he became this government bureaucrat. And so he served, though, this government office, doing his duties, and he was still able to serve God. He was doing the very best that he can. And again, I'm just pausing as I'm stumbling, because I'm just thinking that we just had a talk last night with our stepson, John, of this same type of thing, of just how difficult it must be to be in politics and to be a bureaucrat in the best possible sense, and stay true to your convictions, and stay true to what is right and moral, and not bending to whatever other people are saying or thinking that you should do, or, oh, I want to keep my seat, so I better vote this way or say this. And again, that's for both political parties, right? Every political, but not even the two major ones, right? All the different ones. That it's so hard, isn't it, to be able to do that you don't know if someone's going to bring up something from your wife's past, that is nobody's business, but yet there it is, or whoever's, past. So anyway, think about how hard that must be for people today, maybe more so than then, I don't know. But think how hard that was, especially for Daniel. And again, we're pretty much the same, right? If you're a Christian or godly person serving in a pretty pagan land that we live in, right, in our country right now. And not just right now, but just over the last 20, 30 years, more and more so. So there's Daniel just trying to hang in there, and not even trying, but doing it, hanging in there, serving with integrity, even though all around him there was not that. And so Nebuchadnezzar respected his faithfulness to God, and again, Daniel rose higher and higher. And then even when King Nebuchadnezzar died, and it was conquered by King Darius, again a pagan, also recognized that Daniel was good at his job, and he was honest, and he was faithful, and all those different qualities. And so again, he appointed Daniel to be one of the highest positions of the land. But remember, there came a time when the pressures were put upon King Darius to kind of lash out, or to step up finally to say, no, this Israelite God is not a real God. And that's as far as I can go, right? So remember, Daniel said the same thing, like, wait a minute, this is not, you can't say that because God is God, right? And so there came this point of, okay, something's got to change. And so King Darius, who had become Daniel's friend, was forced to incarcerate Daniel, throw him in the lion's den, right? And again, we know the story. God shut the lions of the mouths of the lion, and Daniel was unharmed. And then the next morning, though, Darius comes rushing to the lion's den, expecting to find, Daniel surely dead. And then Darius says in verse 20 of Daniel 6, he says, when he came near the den, he called to Daniel in an anguished voice, Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God, whom you serve continually, been able to rescue you from the lions? So here is this unbeliever who believes that through the life and the work and Daniel's faithfulness, believes that Daniel would be spared. I'm sure there was some doubt. He rushes, are you there? So he's asking, but how unlikely would it be that he would be unharmed after being in this lion's den, right? So isn't that interesting? Daniel worked in this pagan environment. He worked in a pagan office. He worked for a pagan king. And yet the one thing that the pagan king knew about Daniel was that Daniel served God continually. And you say, well, that was Daniel. He's like in the Bible, right? He's somebody. I'm just ordinary me in my ordinary job, in my ordinary workplace, in my ordinary home that I'm the caregiver at my home. I caregive, for my family or for my parents, right? I have this ordinary job that I do. But think about it. You know what? God only made a certain number of these people that we see their lives as examples in the Bible. And he made a whole lot of the rest of us that live ordinary lives. He made a lot of ordinary people, and God delights in taking ordinary people like me, like you, and infusing them with extraordinary power. And when an ordinary person goes to an ordinary workplace, determined to be faithful to God, God can do extraordinary things through him or her. And God is always glorified when that happens, no matter where it is, no matter if it's at school, in your own home, wherever it is. We have a choice every day. Before I share, hopefully, some things that I hope are going to stick with you this week that you'll kind of remember, I just want to share just a personal story, and I promise, shorten it up. I was thinking about this as I was thinking about talking about this today. You don't have to answer this, but maybe some of you know what a drinking game is. Okay, so when someone says something, right, it's like, okay, everybody takes a shot or a drink or whatever, right? I think that's what a drinking game is, right? So I thought, I wonder if people are doing that, yes, with me and my concussion. Like every time Pastor Jane talks about her concussion, okay, one more time, she did, So I am feeling better, and and I got one, relieving MRI results. Again, I figured it probably would be nothing, but I was just so happy that things came back well. So still having some issues for sure, but I'm probably at 80%, so I'm just so grateful. So I went to get an MRI. The only place that could have it closest that was scheduling through my concussion specialist that I had seen was about an hour and 45 minutes away in Elyria. So Mark's working again. Husband Mark is working and one arm still. So brother Mark went ahead and took me. So we went there. I'm just so glad, I just have been, kind of on pins and needles, right? For the last, 3 weeks, I guess it's been scheduled. So finally, just get an answer, So I go in and everything and change, and I'm getting ready to hop on the MRI table. And of course, the tech says the words we don't want to hear. He says, "Oh, there's a problem." I'm like, okay, what? Well, it turns out the MRI that was ordered on my brain was this specialized thing, very, very more, I have no brain issues, very more intense, not intense, help me out, detailed, thank you, detailed. And so I needed a Tesla 3, which I thought was a car, but it's a Tesla 3 machine, and they didn't have one at this place. So 3 weeks earlier when I had scheduled it, apparently the person scheduling just hadn't checked or seen what test I had or something. So I get dressed, come back out to the front, gosh, is there any way that you could do this? My brother, drove all this way. Can you please look? They have several other satellites, many other satellites places. Could you please look? Well, I suppose maybe they kind of looked. Yeah, there's nothing. You'll have to come back. Maybe tomorrow we'll have time, whatever. Could you, and of course by then I'm starting to cry, and of course I had my sunglasses on, so maybe they couldn't tell. But I'm like, please, is there any way, we'll drive anywhere that we need to at one of these satellites. If we could just get this done today. It wasn't my fault that this tech scheduled it the wrong place. And there's like 5 other apparently places that have these Tesla machines. Could you please, not helpful. So then it was, well, you know what? Okay, there's one in Youngstown. Okay, so I call Mark on the phone because he's outside. Mark, can you drive me to Youngstown for this MRI? We're trying to check this out, blah, blah. Okay. So just because we've all lived long enough that we know this happens sometimes, I said, so just to confirm, before we drive to Youngstown has a Tesla 3, right? No, they don't. Okay, so I had an appointment for the next day at another place, whatever. So I go out to the car. There was a little more to it, but that's okay. But I didn't lose my cool. I just bawled, basically. So, So went out to the car, talking to Mark. Mark's like, Jenny, it's just one day. You're okay? I said, I know, but I just, So I called the place. and there was not much sympathy shown in this first office. And I get it. I'm blubbering. I get it, they see people all the time, and there was more to it. So just no sympathy whatsoever, which I probably would have been fine with if they would have honestly looked and honestly said, oh, we're so sorry for this mistake, blah, blah, blah. All we have is tomorrow, I probably would have walked back out to the car and been just fine. So I called this other place. I'm just confirming before I leave this parking lot that tomorrow when I show up to this other place, which will be another 2-hour drive, that you have a Tesla 3. Why? I explained it to her. Her name was Julie. I remember her name. She said, well, let me just put you on hold for a minute. And then, of course, I'm crying because, oh my gosh, there's like one person in the world who's showing sympathy. I don't even care if they have anything. At least she just was like so nice about it. So she comes back. I've talked to my boss, my supervisor. We're going to call around. We're going to find a place that maybe we can get you in today. We will do our very best. We're going to start calling. I said, well, you know what? We're going to start driving there right now. So we do, and then sure enough, I don't know, 5-10 minutes later, she calls. Well, my supervisor is working on it. We found this, and that, and there's one place that you can go to, and they said they're going to fit you in today. Now, again, I would have been fine with going back to this other place, this new place, the next day. But how nice was that? And just her tone, and just her, oh my gosh, you must be so frustrated. Oh, yes, I am frustrated, right? And so off we went, right, to this other place, and she keeps me on the phone, and she texts me, and oh yeah, her name's Becky. I remember that name too. Becky says that, yep, she's going to stay there until you get there, because we said 21 minutes on the GPS, we'll be there. She's going to stay there to make sure that you get in, and so sure enough, I did go in. They were expecting me. I waited a little while in the waiting room, no problem, and had it done. And I just, again, on the drive home, as I was just like mentally and emotionally exhausted, and so was Mark probably at that time from all of it, but that I just thought, what a difference that makes. And again, we've all had experiences that way, right? Maybe we've been the person not real helpful, and again, I get it. I have no idea what's in their lives. Maybe they had some bad medical news that morning, right? I have no idea if they're Christian or not, either group of workers, right? But yet, one group was completely, uncooperative, unhelpful, unsympathetic, and then the other people just did what they could, and they happened to get exactly what I wanted. Well, not exactly. It would have been scheduled right in the first place. But you know what? It doesn't happen. Things happen. And they were empathetic, right? And they did what they could. And isn't that, again, the Christ-like thing to do, of showing that love, showing that care, whether you can help them out that day with an MRI or not, just showing God's love. So there's 4 short suggestions. I got these also from this Dr. Newland that I'd found this first quote, and I thought they were really catchy and memorable. I'm usually not really good about little catchy phrases, but I want to show you these. So in your workplace, and again, wherever that situation is for you, don't brag, right? So if they know that you're Christian, that's great, fine. Don't hide it, of course. But again, make sure that you are not bragging about that. Well, and again, that very often people will say to us, right? Oh, you Christians, you have it so easy. Nothing ever happens to you. And we all could go, nope. That's completely the opposite, right? So just make sure, again, in your workplace that you're not putting people off by bragging about your faith, about your life. If it is going well, that's wonderful, right? Number 2, don't nag, right? Same kind of thing. You can get more, attract more bees with honey, right, than with something else that I can't remember right now, okay? So again, don't nag at people, right? Hitting them over the head with the Bible is not going to show them God's love. You doing things, you helping each other, you thinking of things before someone asks it. Hey, you know what? You didn't ask me, but I am going to do this for you. Oh, geez, that's so nice of you. Thank you, right? Being more considerate, thinking of all those different things. That's the way that we can show God's love, not nagging at people. Number 3, don't lag. Okay? Again, making sure that we're doing the best that we can to be the best workers we can, right? Because we've all seen that. Hypocritical people that we see them in church, and then we hear what they say at the board meeting, or we see what they do on social media, right? So don't lag in the respect of always making sure that you are being a good worker, right? That you are doing what needs to be done, not letting other people take over or do all the work. Or better yet, you doing some extra that didn't even belong to you, that wasn't your thing. But yet you do that to make the other people's lives happier. And number 4, don't sag. This can be hard, right, to do all these different things. It can be very hard, I don't want to be the one that's always at work, not using maybe a lot of bad language, or I don't want to be the one that's always the one that this job needs to be done. So I'm gonna, I'm gonna take care of it so it gets done, and that I make other people happy. They don't have to do it, right? Doing all those things can be hard, right? To be the one to always be on, right? To always be trying to work Christ-like. It can be draining. But at the same time, again, we are encouraged to keep working, right? To keep fighting the good fight, to keep running the good race for Christ. Your coworkers will notice. They'll notice that you are making a difference. And sooner or later, if you keep your eyes fixed on Jesus, if you react to problems in a different way, if you don't gossip, if you react with integrity to difficulties that come up in the day, someone's going to notice that. More than one someone. You're different. What causes that difference? How are you able to be so calm here? How are you able to do this when I just want to scream, or I just want to swear, or I just want to shake somebody? How is it that you're able to just do your job and do it with integrity and calmness and thinking about other people? Because remember, your coworkers are looking for solutions, right? And they might not be looking in the respect that they're sitting here today, or that they're watching this video, or that they're picking up the Bible. But you know it. You know it from people that you sit and you're sitting next to them at the soccer game, you're hearing them in the grocery store, maybe you're in the cubicle next to you. You know that everybody's going through things, right? Everybody, including each and every one of us, are going through things in our life, right? And we know that everybody, including us, but including people who are not Christians, are searching. They're searching for answers and for solutions. And if you can mirror Christ and what Christ does for you in your life, sooner or later, again, that door is going to swing gently open for you to share gently and openly your own testimony of what God has done in your life. Someone desperately needs to hear Christ's message in your sphere of influence. And I hope that in some way you can see your workplace or wherever it is that you serve God, which again is everywhere, as a holy place, as a sacred place where you can serve God and truly share in Christ's love. May it be so. Amen.